The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of This Week in the AFL. Alongside my partner, as always, Erik Watkins, I'm Stephen Err. And I wanted to be the first, probably the first, I assume I'm the first, to wish Mr. Erik Watkins a very happy birthday, as he turns 31 tomorrow.
Thank you. You might have been slightly beaten out by my Australian friend on Facebook, but odds are it's close enough.
Oh, close enough. So, Erik's going to enjoy his weekend, but tonight it's all about the business, all about the Arena Football League and other stuff. We started by talking about the Cleveland Gladiators, and last week we said that their game against Baltimore, it was do or die for Cleveland. They must have, like I said with Sean Brackett a few weeks ago, they must have heard the last podcast, because they went out, they intercepted Shane Carden 4 times and went over the Brigade.
I mean, we talked about, okay, how is their defense really going to step up? Especially guys like Rashawn Kaiser, and, well, they went and they took care of business. Gave the offense just enough room to pull out a win. Kudos to them.
Yeah, they've been playing much better football, I could say, over the past couple of weeks. And it's funny you mentioned Rashawn Kaiser. I was going through Inside the Arena's Twitter timeline, and I realized how many times I kept saying that Rashawn Kaiser has been on IR for the past couple of weeks. So they're doing this. All this defense is playing well without one of the best defensive players in the league. That surprised me when I saw that today.
I mean, when you have a focal point, and this could be either on a team or on offense or on defense, and you lose that focal point, if you've got players who have the mindset of knowing how to step up, you can shock the world by how well you can do without them. With Cleveland, this is one of those cases. They're like, okay, we need a win, get ourselves to 3-7, keep us in a good playoff position. This is what we have to do. They did it in spades.
Yeah, like I said, the Gladiators have been playing much better football over the past few weeks. They kept it close with Philadelphia 2 weeks ago. Last week they shut down. The week before they shut down Washington. Last week was when they kept it close against Philadelphia, and now they're intercepting the Rookie of the Year 4 times without one of their star defensive players. Not only with the win, though, not only that, by technicality, I like to call it, the Gladiators are in 3rd place in the Arena Football League playoff standings. But it's not over. It's obviously not over yet. There are, 6 more weeks left of the regular season. It's going to be a tough race. It's going to be a very close race between Cleveland and Baltimore the rest of the way.
It's a close race, and it's going to now come down to 2 things. These meetings between Cleveland and Baltimore and head-to-head, and Baltimore has a bit of a sneaky advantage because they have 2 games in hand, thanks to Cleveland having to take those extra couple of bye weeks in how they're scheduled. How Baltimore can do that and take advantage, that's going to tell whether they can either leave Cleveland behind a bit, or if they fall farther back in the race and end up in a dogfight with Washington.
Oh, God.
Exactly.
Yeah, I too have thought about Baltimore falling down to where Washington is, and I would just not like to see that. The way I've seen Shane Carden play and the way the offense has been playing, I would not, personally, not like to see the Brigade fall that far, even though I did project them to be the team out this year at the beginning of the season. But I'm going to ask you first before I give my answer, Erik. We have the Gladiators, we have the Brigade. Gladiators lead by half a game for the 3 seed. Who do you think, in the end, comes out as the 3 seed? And why?
With the way that they're gelling, I am going to give it to Cleveland, barely. Now, granted, they didn't do themselves any favors in getting rid of Larry Beavers, but I think with getting the rhythm back that they had from last year, Arvell Nelson under center, Quentin Sims, Colin Taylor, and with how their defense is now gelled and stepped up, I give them in the ever so slightest of advantage. Baltimore, they're not going to quite be at 3 seed this year, but if they can get the rest of the season under their belt, hard telling how well that they can jump off from this and do next year.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Like I said, I've said this now 3 times in the first 5 minutes of the show. The Gladiators have been playing better football over the past few weeks. Wow. Now that I think about it a little more, it's tough to think about who could be the 3 seed, the Cleveland Gladiators or the Baltimore Brigade, because both teams have talent, obviously, on offense. Both teams have much talent. I would have to give it to Baltimore as of right now, because if they had one bad game, I'm not going to rip them for one bad game against Cleveland. I do feel Cleveland will continue to do well, but I feel like Baltimore, they have a little bit more star power. Reggie Gray is actually back from his, I believe it was a collarbone injury, he said on Twitter. And as on the Gladiators side, I don't mean to bash them. We are inside the arena, and on This Week in the AFL, we love Colin Taylor. Before what I've seen from Cleveland, he hasn't done much.
He's been surprisingly quiet. Quentin Sims has been more of the guy, and I don't know if that's defensive schemes and what he's going up against, or offensive game plans being tweaked, especially now that they were a few weeks into their scheme under their new OC. But you're right. I was expecting a little bit more from him this season. Maybe that's why he hasn't clapped back at me on Twitter.
Well, Colin Taylor's missed the last 2 games. One for Shane Austin's wedding. Again, congratulations, Shane and his wife. And last week he missed the game for undisclosed reasons. I'm not sure why he missed the game, but he was in the broadcast booth. I do know that. But
that's off. That's a little too vague, if you ask me. That could open up some question marks.
What kind of question marks? I'm curious now.
Well, normally, if it's some sort of injury, teams in this league are good about disclosing injuries. If the team doesn't right away, the player does. If it's for personal reasons, they'll say, yes, it's for personal reasons, and we'll discover way down the line. You're missing a game for undisclosed reasons, and they've got you in the booth. Now, why they would have you in the booth, that only leads to a couple things. Either your season's done, you're going to be out for a couple of games, something's going on to where you want to be around. So that's my question. Why is it that it's undisclosed, which could mean a bunch of different things? Injury, personal. You may decide to pull a Bernard Morrison up and leave entirely. But you're up in the broadcast booth, which means a couple different things. To me, this is maybe a bit of a mixed signal. I'm the first one to say if I'm overthinking it, but this turns too many wheels.
Curious and curiouser. Well, Colin Taylor and the Gladiators are off next week, as there is only one game next weekend as the Storm host the Valor. Maybe we'll try and get Colin on. Maybe he could explain what's going on with him. Maybe he's injured or personal reasons, whatever it may be. We'll try to get down to the bottom of it.
Yeah, pick his brain a little bit.
Yeah, sure. We're going back to the game for one final thought from me. Reggie Gray returned. And as far as I'm concerned, as I watched this game, they didn't really use him. The Brigade really didn't go to him that much. I don't know. I'm not saying that's why the Brigade fell to the Gladiators last week. That was because Shane Carter threw 4 interceptions, one which was just an awful throw at the goal line. But maybe Reggie Gray, now that he's back, possibly, I'm hoping, as a Marine football fan, not as a Marine football journalist, if they do use him more, that will help their offense get better. And they could possibly push themselves away from Cleveland, depending on how Cleveland does the rest of the way.
And this is why I say those 2 games in hand count. Because you have 2 extra opportunities with Reggie Gray that Cleveland doesn't with their offense. Now, I would probably give Baltimore maybe 1 more game because, remember, he's been out the bulk of the season. He's a little bit on the older side. So getting him back into the flow of the game, not to mention readjusting your offense again now that you have him, it's going to take time. So you're not going to see him be the Reggie Gray of old for another couple weeks. But this could be just in time to give the Brigade that extra push.
Good. That is a good point. Maybe Reggie Gray won't be the same for the next few weeks. But as you just said, a push. I'm feeling this coming weekend, Baltimore has an edge over Cleveland based on the schedule. Baltimore hosts the Valor for the first time ever, and the Gladiators host the Soul. I feel like the strength of schedule for this weekend could give Baltimore the edge in getting that 3 seed back.
Absolutely, because if things fall the way that they have been so far this season, and I've got to really clarify that because it's been a weird season, then Baltimore all of a sudden goes from being behind on a virtual tie, just percentage points, to Cleveland being 2 back in the loss column. Brigade have a 1-game lead.
Right.
That's important because, again, look at where those extra 2 games are that Cleveland's already played. Look at the timing of these bye weeks. If the Brigade can put together a rhythm and at the very least place a 500 ball the rest of the season, they could dethrone Cleveland for that 3 seed.
It's quite possible. We will see it this weekend when the Brigade hosts the Valor, the Gladiators host the Soul. Any final thoughts on the Gladiators Brigade game, Erik?
Shane, shake it. Short-term memory. Get out there next week. Do it all over again. Put this as far away from your mind as possible.
Good point. So the Gladiators beat the Brigade, and on a virtual tie, as Erik calls it, Cleveland is in 3rd place in the Arena Football League standings. Baltimore right behind them, the 4th position. So now we move on to the next game, which, what can I say, Erik? It was such a disappointment. The Soul and the Storm, our Arena Bowl 30 preview. It's going to be a great game, we said last week.
Mm-hmm.
And the Soul go on to win by 21 points.
Okay, I'm going to have to eat my own words to an extent because I was right there on the hype train. But I did say it could get ugly early. I just didn't. I also said Rotterdam and Dalzell needed to have a meeting of the minds. Apparently they listened. They did. And it did get ugly early for the Storm.
Yeah.
28-7 at the end of the first quarter, Hippard with one of the largest knee braces I've ever seen, sacked a couple of times, and I was just like, wow. Did not see this coming.
I didn't either, especially a 21-0 lead, especially against that offense. I was like blown away. I was like, this isn't happening. But what it was, if you ask me what I saw watching this game, because obviously I watched this game, the Soul defense, that was a huge part of their 21-point win. Yeah,
early on, they said to themselves, we're going to get in Hippard's face. If Rotterdam's not comfortable right away, we're going to make Randy Hippard's life a living nightmare for these next 60 minutes. And those first 3-4 drives, it was bad throw, sack, under pressure, scrambled, bad throw. There was maybe a handful of good throws, really up until the good ways into the second quarter. And that's when, at that time, Tampa Bay was only able to match pace. They were too far down.
Not only did the Soul defense dominate the Storm offense pretty much, they shut them down. Obviously, 21-0 after one. The Storm defense couldn't stop the Soul offense. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I finally saw the Soul play flawless offense. One turnover on down. That was it. No turnovers, no off-target passes. Everything was going perfect for the Soul. Very happy to see that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good for them, and it was kind of a shame for the Storm defense because there were times when they had opportunities. A couple clutch third downs. Nothing. Big runs, passes along the sideline. They were so focused at going in between the numbers that the Soul just took advantage. It's like, okay, screen, bubble, get guys open, and then once the middle of the field was right there because the Storm overcompensated, deep passes, couple big runs, Michael Benson getting a couple early touchdowns to get to his 100. Congratulations to him. It was just a mismatch.
Big one. Like Erik said, congratulations to Michael Benson. He now has 101 career touchdowns. And also, got to give props to Money. Darius Reynolds scored 5 touchdowns in this game. His second career 5-touchdown game. Props to him as well.
Cashing in. He being the main guy tonight, helping Rodaball pass his numbers. I mean, just after being the youngest quarterback in league history to get to 30,000 yards, following up with a performance like this, I believe he just went over 300 career touchdowns. It was incredible.
Yeah. Also, I believe Rodaball was the game where Rodaball became the youngest player in Arena Football League history to reach the 30,000-yard passing mark. So congratulations to Rodaball as well. Playing like an MVP. Hint, hint. But we flip over to the other side of the ball. Tampa's in trouble now, Erik. They already lost the season series to Philadelphia. It's 2-0 Soul. There's only one meeting left. End of the season. The Storm now have some work to do if we want a very, very exciting August 5th matchup between these two at the end of the season.
Personally, I think this was the must-win game because I don't see the Soul losing twice. And after this game, just like I said, I don't see Washington winning. I'm going to have a hard time seeing Philadelphia losing. I'm not gonna wager a bet on this one yet because I already got potentially one delicious steak dinner waiting for me. But this right here, this showed me a lot. If they can get to 10-0, then you might be able to lock down the next 4.
Oh, man. Another bold prediction from Erik. He believes the Soul could, not saying would, they could go undefeated. Just like the Washington Valor could go winless. The Valor are off this week, so I guess technically they stay winless. So Erik's steak dinner, very much intact. Any final thoughts from Soul Storm, Erik?
One milestone down, looking against the statistics. Now it's on to Rodaball, seeing if he can get to 700 touchdowns. I mean, geez, this... Whoa. Looks like I have to alter my Arena Bowl plans, and the Tampa shenanigans may not be happening at this point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it looks like I'm not going to be able to see my father at the end of August. I'll be seeing my friends instead up in New Jersey before I head to Philadelphia. But anyway, that's a different story for a different time. When we come back, we're switching over here. We're going to talk about the China Arena Football League because they had some breaking news come out yesterday, and I'm not happy about it. That, plus Eric's reaction to everything going on around the China Arena Football League right now, is on the other side. You are listening to This Week in the AFL.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at Don James Sports.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network.
Are you an arena football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. Check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
Welcome back, everybody, to This Week in the AFL. Alongside Erik Watkins, I'm Stephen Err. Eric's birthday is tomorrow. He turns 31 and is still young.
Still young, but the epic hair has got twinges of gray, so I'm starting to get in that in-between phase.
Oh, boy. Well, once again, we want to wish Erik a happy birthday, and I hope he has fun this weekend. I know I will as well. But it's not all fun right now, as the CAFL has postponed their season until spring of 2018. Erik, I want to get your reaction to this news first before I go off on my reaction.
Okay. This kind of reminds me of two situations that have happened in the annals of football. In the USFL, they, thanks to a certain man who shall remain nameless, were doing great as a spring league, but they wanted to transition to the fall, trying to go alongside the big bad at the time, which was the NFL. Through a big, famous litigation case, it failed miserably, and the USFL was done. Go back even farther, you had the upstart American Football League that played alongside the NFL. Did very well, was very competitive, and the two leagues eventually merged. Now, I mentioned both of those situations because this is a make-or-break decision for the CAFL. Reading the release, they're saying how they would eventually want a world championship, an official world championship between the two leagues, and I'm thinking to myself, fine. However, the CAFL is still fairly new. This is only going to be Super Series 2. They're talking about expanding, even though they've lost two teams. Are they going to do the same style barnstorming tour, or are they going to expand the season, which at some point they would have to do in order to realize this World Championship dream, and get teams based at home? There's a lot up in the air for the CAFL. I would hope that if they're sticking to this, they do it right, because they only have one chance at doing the right thing and making this go smoothly. And if they don't, this isn't only going to have repercussions for the CAFL, with a lot of other things going on, and I hope to touch on them even more next week. This is going to have repercussions for arena football as a whole itself. These could potentially be very glorious, but these could also have a hint of disaster.
Okay. That is a good point. All this that could lead to, and I'm with you there. This is where I start my reaction. It could lead to disaster. You have several players in the CAFL coming from the Arena Football League in Super Series 1. Colin Taylor, James Romaine, Mike Washington, Dwayne Hollis, just to name a few. They all played in the AFL from April to August, and then they went over to China to play in the CAFL last October. Now you want to bring the CAFL to play the same time as the AFL. What are the players going to do? They can't play two leagues at the same time. So let's say these players that I named, Colin Taylor, Dwayne Hollis, even maybe Shane Carden goes back to China instead of playing the AFL. Then what does that leave the AFL? A bunch of nobodies. Well, a lot of nobodies, not a bunch of them. And then then you flip it around. What if the players, instead of playing in China, decided to go play in the Arena Football League? It means you have a bunch of nobody Americans. And the CAFL will look bad without these star players coming over from the Arena Football League because they decided they want to play in America as opposed to China. Not only that, but before this all begins, the players are going to have to sit down. Like all these players that played both leagues last year, they're going to sit down and they're going to have to think real hard because this is a very tough decision. Which league do I want to play in? So I personally am not a fan of this at all. I do not like the idea of the CAFL, the AFL playing at the same time. It's a disappointment from the CAFL in my eyes. I mean, it's great. We're going to have double coverage for inside the arena and whatnot. But at the same time, one league could be really good and the other could be really bad. We just don't know. I just can't. I can't believe they did this. Like, why would they want to do that? Why don't they keep it at separate times so we can fully enjoy each league at different times instead of flipping back and forth from league to league? You know, it's a bad idea. I wish the CAFL wasn't doing this, but they are.
Well, let me kind of expound on a couple of points, and I'm glad that you brought up, because these kind of leads into what I was thinking. Last year you had the big draft where you drafted a lot of the players from the AFL. Now you're not going to have that resource. As you said, where are they going to get players from? Some of your lower level arena leagues? Or are you going to go to the other indoor football leagues? Which, completely separate issue that I'll talk about on a separate show, what this could mean for them. But now you're going to have to get these players. You're going to have more tryouts. You're going to have more combines to stock your league. If you're going to do this, how are you going to show your stability? As I said before, 2 teams gone. Now you're down to 4, and you ideally want to expand to 8, how is this going to happen? And also, for the AFL, you already got a good pool of talent, guys coming from undrafted out of college, coming from NFL camps, trying to get to other NFL camps, CFL camps, what have you. How are you now going to compete with China as an option? Because it's there. Especially if you've got the investors like you had going into Super Series 1, where you're going to be living like a baller much more than you would be playing here in the States. And another big thing, you hit the nail on the head. Double coverage. With 2 leagues going at the same time. The AFL, for all of their issues with teams leaving, with all the issues now that we only have 5 teams playing this year, the one thing they kept secure was a TV deal, which, let's be honest, the league needed now more than ever. Now, if you're going to expand into new markets, you have that as a good basis. The CAFL, okay, you're linked in with certain network providers, but you're not on a couple channels that are widely accessible to American homes. Plus, I haven't even touched on the time zone difference yet. You need that sort of a deal because people aren't going to be up 1, 2, 3 in the morning looking at these live. You're going to need to find a network that will be willing to replay your matches in prime time so you can be easily accessible through television to the masses. How are you going to set up that deal? How are you going to set up a new draft? How are you going to fundamentally restructure your league to pull this off? And for the AFL, how are you going to, at the very least, be stable, potentially expand, so now you can keep pace with this flood of markets? And one last point, they had mentioned, like, a World Arena Bowl. Fine. Starting in Beijing, that's going to be tricky for whatever American champion you have. And if in any fairness, you're going to have to rotate it annually between Chinese and American cities. How are you going to compensate for the team that's got to travel thousands of miles to play that title game? This is just too raw of a process and way too soon for the CAFL to be pulling something like this. You're leaving yourself too much work to do.
It is a very lot of work to do. And to clear things up for Erik, there are indeed still 6 teams. They're just the Dalian Dragon Kings and the Shenzhen Naja are no more. There are now 2 new teams, the Wuhan Gators and the Shenyang Rhinos. Those are 2 of the newest teams in the CAFL. But you did touch on something that I totally missed, and I should have thought about this. TV. Last year, Super Series 1, the games, like you said, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then the one game, 7 o'clock in the morning. But I worked at 7 o'clock in the morning, so I never got to watch the game live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nobody's going to be watching at 2 o'clock in the morning. So if you're going to have a TV deal, make sure that TV station, whatever it might be, plays the game later in the day. Even if it's a replay, it don't matter. So people can watch it and be like, wow, look at this league. That's cool. This is interesting. Which it was. Super Series 1 is very interesting to watch. I stayed up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning watching these games because I'm crazy. But
yeah, you were much more dedicated than I was because I'm like, you know what? I work and I do a whole bunch of other stuff. And I got to go to bed.
Yeah, I did it for the love of the game. But now that it's not even the league plays games on One World Sports, which, like Erik said, wasn't even available to all American homes. wasn't like CBS, NBC, Fox. No. It was One World Sports. A channel not everybody gets. I was lucky enough to get it. It's not even One World Sports anymore. Now it's 11 Sports. It's just 11 Sports. I don't even know if the CAFL has that deal with them anymore because they changed their name and their brand and everything. So there's that. The TV deal is a big thing because people that do stay up to watch these games at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, like me, they want to watch these games at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and not have to scramble around the website or whatever it may be to find highlights, stats, recap, whatever. So that's another thing. That's a good point Erik brought up. TV deals. And the time, like you said, the time zones. Well, the time zone I'm not too worried about because I would stay up to watch them. But I'm bringing up the other point you brought up. Put it on later. A pre-recording. Whatever, a replay, whatever you want to call it. That's what you got to do. And then I got to touch base on this whole all-star game business. That's what I would call it. A world game, whatever. The idea that I believe the idea Martin Judge has for this game is for it to be a championship game between the Arena Football League and the China Arena Football League.
Mm-hmm.
That's just it's insane. If I'm Martin Judge, I wait. So both seasons are over. We've crowned a champion. And then, like I said this last year too. All-star game. Make it an all-star game. Best players from China against the best players from the American Arena Football League. Bam. Right there. It could be, I don't care if it's in Beijing. I don't care. Just don't make it a game where it's like a Super Bowl between two countries. It makes no sense. Make it an all-star game. Best between one league and best between another league. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah, with the way things are now with the arduous flight. Now, granted, if we're still talking about arena football decades down the road when they have better technology and you can go around the world in 9 hours, yes, I can see a championship game between two countries. But we're not even close to being there yet. And even if you wanted to make it an all-star game, AFL All-Stars versus CAFL All-Stars, let's face it, you're going to need better balance as far as length of the season when you're dealing with AFL and CAFL. Because right now, AFL All-Stars, they would have a little bit of an advantage because you got, for the most part, a little better talent, but they would be tired. They're just getting through in 14 games in 18 weeks, then 2 playoff games for anybody who appeared in the Arena Bowl. Whereas with the CAFL, you have your 6 teams, you only played 6 weeks. You're fresh. The CAFL, if you got the right guys, they could run some of the AFL All-Stars out of the arena. Then what good would that be? So the CAFL and the AFL would have to sit down and say, okay, how can we get to a happy medium with the lengths of seasons? Come up with the number, try to stick to that.
Yeah, that's another point you brought up earlier about how the CAFL is like not even half the season of the AFL. That's another thing that's a little concerning. Like, I mean, it's okay because once the CFL season's over, we still got the AFL, so that's something. But as far as the whole World Championship idea goes, like you said, if you want to do it, make sure the seasons end at the same time. Because then, like the week or 2 weeks after, you could have that World Championship game, which is ridiculous. But
well, you would to accommodate for travel, you would need 2 weeks.
Right.
You would. You can't have a team fly halfway across the planet, be settled, and really only have, a couple of days practice? No, you need 2 weeks.
Right. So, like you said, they are going to expand to 8 teams. That's awesome. But even that is not even half an Arena Football League season. They need to expand to, or at least expand the season.
Mm-hmm.
At least do what the AFL is doing. Keep playing the same teams over and over again. Whatever you got to do to make sure, if you're going to want to do this world title game, make sure the seasons end at the same time. Then, like you said, 2 weeks. Then do the world star game, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do 8 teams, you can set up to where you can have a 14-game season. Now, granted, you would still have to start 4 weeks or later than the AFL, but it's doable. 14 games, both leagues have their semifinals, championship games, and then 2 weeks later, so you're talking closer to Labor Day, you have this big game. That I'm fine with. And then you would adjust the schedules if, hopefully, the AFL expands so that when you get off an odd number, or if the CAFL expands or whatever, but you want to keep that around in that frame. Otherwise, you're just going to look stupid.
I agree completely. And you mentioned to decades down the road where we can travel around the world in 9 hours. Hell, I'm hoping in decades down the road we could travel the world in 9 seconds. That would be something.
As someone who is a dedicated futurist and loves shows like Year Million and things like that, that's awesome. But given our society and how we advance, unfortunately, it's not going to be realistic. For anybody who wants a good idea of what I'm talking about, go back and look up the Super Bowl 100 series that Sports Illustrated did with Wired. Great series, mentioned a lot of great points about the NFL, and I think that could apply to sports in general. Plus, circling back to arena football, and I'm going to tease this, there might be a couple of other leagues that would be better off merging at some point down the road. I'm going to leave it at that.
You know, I was going to say at the end of the episode how Erik is so creative, and I am also creative, that we're going to make the best show we can with one game next week. He just proved again how creative he is. He comes up with these ideas. And I'm going to have to read that thing about the Super Bowl 100 series from Sports Illustrated as well.
Mm-hmm.
But when we come back, we're going back to America, to the American Arena Football League, because there's still 2 games to be played this weekend, and they're pretty exciting. That is on the other side. You're listening to This Week in the AFL.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at Don James Sports.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football to the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network.
Are you an arena football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
Welcome back to This Week in the AFL alongside Erik Watkins. I'm Steven. Eric's birthday this weekend. I'm going to see Skillet in concert at King's Dominion. It's going to be a fun weekend. It's going to be a fun weekend. I know it's going to be fun for you as well. So let's get this show wrapped up. Let's start with the first game of the weekend this Friday. The Brigade hosts the Valor for the first time ever. This is only the second meeting between the two expansion franchises of the three meetings this year. And I feel like this is going to be a very interesting matchup because you have the Brigade, who have been playing well. If you take away last week's loss to the Gladiators. And then you have the Valor, who have just had bad luck. There's no way other way to say it. They've had bad luck the past couple of weeks. Fumbled snap against the Soul. Extra point was missed. Then Sean Brackett threw some bad interception against Cleveland. And then they missed a potential game-winning 2-point conversion against Tampa. So, Erik, I want to ask you, going into this game, is this the week, and I have a feeling I already know your answer, is this the week the Valor break their bad luck?
No.
I knew it.
I mean, you called it. You said you already knew my answer. No. I mean, first of all, hard to believe that this is the first Beltway SmackDown since opening week of the season. Maybe the schedule gods did us a favor with everything going on, that it is the first meeting since the beginning of the season. But this is the first one in Baltimore, Royal Farms Arena. Baltimore is going to be a little bit hungrier for a couple of reasons. One, to prove last week was an aberration, and to try to catch Cleveland, and that was the Valor's lone win so far this season.
Yep.
So especially Shane Carden, with what he did in the second half of that game, he's like, I can do this to you in a half. Give me a full 60 minutes and see what happens. So the bad luck is going to continue, and I will be one game closer to my steak dinner.
You took my next point right out of my notes. I was going to say, think back to the last time these two met. Week 1, opening night. Not just opening weekend, it was opening night. April 7th in Washington. Chase Cartwright has the Brigade down, 34-6 at halftime, and Coach Omar Smith had seen enough. So he put in Shane Carden, and the Brigade went out to outscore the Valor 34-28 in the second half, only to lose by 13. So maybe this week the Valor will break their bad luck, but they have to face a good Brigade team. So I give the edge to Baltimore in this game because Shane Carden, because what he did last time these two teams, like you said, the last time these two teams met, he tore apart their defense. They scored 34 points in the second half. And, I feel like that we're in for not just a half, but a full game of Carden picking apart the defense once again.
And not to mention, even in that Valor game opening night, Eric Meyer was their starting quarterback. He ain't starting this weekend.
Nope.
So, sorry, Washington. I mean, you've got something. Can't tell you what. The Nationals are doing okay. Hang your hat on that for this week.
As long as Bryce Harper is there, the Nationals will always do all right.
Get back to me next season. Ka-ching.
Key to victory for both teams, I feel, is the offense. Carden must outdo the defense again, which I do believe he will do, like he did week 1. And Brackett, he just got to avoid mistakes. He's got to find Greg Carr, like he did against the Soul, for 4 touchdowns, or Roger Spider-Man Jackson, who has been pretty quiet. So that pretty much that's it for me. Final thought on this game from you, Erik.
Washington, decide. No, scratch that. Don't decide who your target's going to be to give yourselves a fighting chance. Baltimore, don't be too quick to go to Reggie Gray. You don't have to yet. You'll be fine.
Brigade and Valor, Friday night, 7 p.m. kickoff. Only available for viewing on arenafootball.com. You can start your 1 year free trial now to watch the game. And the rest of the games on arenafootball.com. But after 1 year, it's $29.99 a month.
Thank you, Monumental Sports Entertainment.
So we move on to the second game, which, once again, the Gladiators and the Storm are facing off. This is now the 4th time in 6 weeks the two teams are facing off. It's getting a little old, but once again, it's interesting. And I believe it was last week you said there was an interesting matchup in the Soul and Storm game with the wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
This week, my interesting matchup is the Soul offense against the Gladiators defense. Cleveland's defense recorded 4 interceptions against Rookie of the Year frontrunner Shane Carden. That's very impressive. The Soul played flawless offense against arguably the best defense in the league in Tampa. That right there is why that is my interesting matchup for the week.
For me, can the Soul do to Arvell Nelson what they did to Randy Hibbert? Now, they've shown that they've gotten better and better as they've played Cleveland later in the season. But if I'm not mistaken, this is it. This is their last crack at them. Can Cleveland pull a little something out of their hat that they haven't been able to do so far? And as I said, can the Soul get that pressure to Nelson, force him to scramble, force him to run to make him second-guess himself on his throws? If the Soul can do that, it's yet another easy win, 10-0. But if Cleveland has some sort of secret weapon that they've been hiding, be it a trick, matchup, different coverage, different play package, something, if they pull it out now, Cleveland might pull off an upset.
Would be interesting to see Cleveland pull off an upset. I don't think it's going to happen. I feel like Philadelphia's offense, kind of like Baltimore, or kind of like Cleveland, pardon me, they're getting better. The offense has played flawless against Tampa. I don't see why they would play not flawless against any other team the rest of the way. But for the Cleveland Gladiators, I'm not saying this is the key to victory. This is just the key to not getting blown out by the Soul. Don't focus on Reynolds. Reynolds scored 5 touchdowns last week. If Coach Selesky looks at this and he says, we got to focus on Darius Reynolds, it's a bad thing to do because the Soul still have Sean Kolomita-Moku, Ryan McDaniel. If Larry Beavers plays in this next game, he was out the last one. They have Larry Beavers. You got to focus on every receiver, not just Reynolds.
Not to mention, if Larry Beavers is in against his old team, how is that going to factor when you get to special teams? Because again, those last 1.5, 2 games against Cleveland, or with Cleveland, he had some big returns. You get that much of an extra boost and better field position if you're the Soul, you take advantage and you pounce. If you are up against that sort of field position with the Gladiators, how do you prevent that? How do you make it as tough as possible and take as many plays as possible for the Soul to score? That's step one.
Okay, so who are your two winners? Oh, I already know the Brigade, your winner for that game. Who do you have winning this one against the Soul and Gladiators?
I got Philadelphia winning. It was going to take a secret weapon. I don't know if Cleveland has that secret weapon. It might be. Their secret weapon may have gone to Philadelphia. It may be going up against them in Larry Devers. Who knows? But no, after what they did last week, again, the Soul, you're a game away from making me place another bet here.
There's a lot to see this week. Will Larry Devers start for the Soul for his Soul debut against former team? Will the Valor get back on track? Or will Erik's steak dinner still be intact with just a couple more weeks to go? And can the Soul continue their undefeated streak? All these questions will be answered this weekend. Also this weekend, Erik will celebrate his birthday, and again, I will be at King's Dominion all day Saturday. So that is going to do it for here at This Week in the AFL alongside Erik Watkins. Happy birthday once more.
Thank you.
I'm Stephen Err. Enjoy your Arena Fall weekend. Erik, enjoy your birthday. Everybody else, we will see you next week.
Peace.
There we go. Oh, I gotta turn off light. Ugh. Much better. That was a pretty good episode.
Yeah, it was. Wasn't
Enjoyed
too
it.
bad at all.
Enjoyed that.
Yeah, and to give you a little tease, especially when I come on NAL Now in a couple of weeks, I've got some big opinions on what the NAL should do and with the AAL as well.
Oh boy, I can't wait to hear about the AAL. Yeah, I have different plans with covering the AAL. It's not going to be like our AFL coverage, that's for sure.
Oh, good.
I realize now that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. As far as the NAL, well, like you said, it might fold, so we'll see. I really doubt that'll happen, but I didn't think the Global Indoor League would fall before it started, but it did.
Yeah, hey, this is why I say with a lot of these arena and indoor leagues, I mean, in my dream scenario, and I will tease this, especially with the CAFL bringing that wrinkle, those two operate like the NFL did and the AFL did in the second half of the 60s. You have two separate entities, but they have at some point some sort of either championship game or all-star game, whatever, at the end of the season. Then, like the old AF2 from back in the day, I think the NAL and AAL get together, follow along that same mold, but act as a minor league. Because they would essentially be that. And then have whatever you want to call that championship game between those two. And with all these other indoor football leagues, I don't know if you merge them and have a third division or if they just wind up going away. You bring your top teams into either NAL, AAL, or AFL here in the States, or you use those as feeders to China. But something at some point's got to give.
Well, let me say this. I think, yeah, trying to think when the final upset on NL that will be. Because if the Sharks win, it's tomorrow night, or Saturday night it is. The game will be Monday, July 10th. So I'll probably have the final show the 13th. That's when I'll have you on. Because I'll be talking about expansion and this, that, and the other, and the future of the NL, whatever.
Okay.
So I think that's what we're going to do there. What else was I going to say? Oh, I was talking to Sean about this earlier. I'm going to try the week of the 3rd to the 7th. I'm going to be doing a week full of NL Now episodes leading up to the title game.
Okay.
And then I'm looking from, what the hell is it, August 21st to the 25th, doing the same thing for this week in the AFL leading up to Arena Bowl 30.
Okay.
So that's just something to put in the back of your head.
All right, yeah, and they could be, especially like short ones, like a half-hour piece, since it's on like a nightly basis. Yeah, that's feasible.
Yeah, something like that. All right, Sean, you there?
The following podcast is a W2M Network partnership production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.